Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast. My name is Brandon. I am here with my good friend Matt, who was invited out to meet a group of lads last night for a libation.
Man.
And he just did not. People, I think Rusty is just working himself to the bone. That's what I think. Burning the candle at the proverbial both ends,
yeah. It was mostly I forgot about it, and then when I was reminded about it, by the time I looked at it and what was happening with my family at the moment, I was like, there's just no way that I'm just going to spring this up again and just run it.
Wives and husbands love when you spring things upon them. Partners love that.
Mine especially, just short plan surprises that she's not really into that as much. So I'm not to say that, she has to like unlock the door to let me out or anything. It's not like that, but whatever.
Well, perhaps she should light the door and to let you out. Maybe you need to have like a chip. I'm thinking a chip. What do you think?
Well, I have gotten used to being alone a lot of the time because I do the majority of this work by myself from home. So I guess I'm getting a little bit more antisocial as I get older.
You are antisocial. I'm getting a little things, and it's
not like clinically that way, but
well, right. It's also you're working a lot. You're putting in a lot of time in. It's funny because the media portion of this, the show and whatever, is both of us. And, I do a lot of the answering of emails and whatnots, but you still have to check it. You still have to keep on it. And you've got a million other. It's hard. It's hard to keep up on things. We get a lot of emails and comments. I want to honor people's time and commenting, but it just takes time. And so by the end of the day, you're like, man, I've put in a full day's work here. So
for sure.
I get it. Hey, you know what? I'm going to keep asking that. I'm going to keep it.
All right. Yeah. Please don't give up on me yet.
Just listeners know that I am trying to get Rusty out of his Appalachian cave to go out and enjoy a little bit of the fruits of his labor.
Get out there.
Yeah,
it's been cold.
We'll let you know if he doesn't come out there.
Yeah.
All right. So Matt, today, interesting week actually. We posted that some people were complaining a couple weeks ago, and we've had this just overwhelming amount of people coming forward going, "You guys are great. Keep talking, whatever." So that's wonderful. We had a couple of. We've actually had quite a few, but we have two super fans, I like to call them, Yvette and Mary, and they both asked us questions, and we've always said that we really appreciate people asking questions. I wish we could answer them sooner, but sometimes it's just the production, the way it works, and getting to it. But today, wait for it, people, we are going to be answering listener questions, along with Matt remember, you guys remember when Matt said that February was a terrible time for selling? And not if your name is Rusty the Reseller. Because he is over his skis in terms of selling. So we have a lot of items to show today.
Yeah.
So, Matt, if you don't mind, let's start with the questions. And then you can actually, I haven't even given Matt these questions. So he might
know the questions.
He might just be fumbling along. You know what? Matt's philosophy is very simple. If he doesn't know the answer, he'll make it up.
Yeah, well, let's try that. I mean, I'm going to say 7 is my first answer, the first question. Purple is number 2. And we'll see how close I am when you actually ask the question.
Okay. All right. So the first is from our super fan, Yvette, who we're trying to get on the show. It's always tricky to try to match up schedules, but we really appreciate Yvette. So Yvette said, I made over $500 last month, which is a lot for me. And by the way, that's probably our target audience, the $500 a month people. So that's no small amount. And that's a good side hustle. It could be more, whatever. Said, I had a small brooch, smaller than an inch big, so it's small. She sent a little picture. It's this beautiful like brooch with like purple stuff and gems on it. I don't know. Matt would probably know.
Purple stuff. That's a technical term.
I reached out and found out that it has real stones, several rubies on it, and I saw sold items for it around $300.
Wow.
I sold it for $237.
Cool.
I'm trying to make extra money now for a trip and then for retire. Yes, we all want to retire, Yvette.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So she's basically saying, is that the right price? So she said she basically thought this was worth more, around $300, but she sold it for $237. So what would a typical listener Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Did she miss out? What happened?
Well, first off, congratulations, and good for you to have done the research to discover what it was before selling it. Because if you had sold that for $75 and then looked at others and was like, oh no, this is like a $300 item, then that's and I've been there. Was that the right price? It's hard for me to know what the right price for you was, Yvette. There are factors there. How quickly do you need to make that money? Like if you've got a trip, then there's a deadline of sorts that you're wanting to have this money in your pocket or in your hand in enough time to pay for things on this trip, right? So if you don't have a time limit, then typically my approach is to list something around the price of the average sale, either slightly above or slightly below. Usually if I'm not in a hurry, I'll list it at or above, hoping that maybe I get a bite in the first couple weeks, first month. Mm-hmm. If I am more needing to sell this quickly, then I will do what Yvette did. I will list it a decent amount underneath what the going rate is, provided it's still plenty high enough that I'm going to make money on it when it sells, right? So if you want it quicker, you price it lower because you want the buyer out there to buy yours and not somebody else's that's similar. Because if you've seen similar items that sold, then any other potential buyer can go find that same information, right, and see what they're selling for. And so then if they come back and see that yours is under, then now you found that buyer. And it was all about your pricing. So I think, yeah, you did a great job. If you have a target goal, I need to have money for this trip, and you have items that you can stand to list for less than the going rate because you got it for such a good price, fantastic. That's the best way to sell things quickly, is to have something that's in demand under the average price. Because then when a person's ready to buy, they're more likely to go after you, provided your pictures are good and all the other stuff is about the same. So yeah, I think that's great. But see here, people ask these questions a lot, like, well, a lot of this is just, this is what I've done. This was a good experience for me, a bad experience. This is what I learned from it. This is what I do now. But, and I said this many times, a lot of my strategy changes because what my business needs and what I'm trying to accomplish or my goals change throughout the year. If our dryer dies, like it did a month ago, and I got to buy a new dryer, then maybe I'm adjusting the pricing of some things to sell some things quickly because I have a specific need for that money. And I hope that rambling kind of made sense. I think you did what you needed to do. The only question is, like, do you feel guilty that you could have sold it for $20 more? I mean, if you regret it, then maybe you should have sold it for $20 more. But if you're happy with having listed it and sold it pretty quickly and got that money in, to me, that's a victory.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to try to do this. I can drop in the picture into the show on YouTube. So I'll put the picture up so people can look at it and see.
Great.
If you're interested. That's what Yvette's talking about. Now, I have a question. I'm pretty sure you've answered this before, but oftentimes when you're going on one of your rambling monologues, it's like the teacher in Charlie Brown for me. Wah, 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 wah. Wah. So,
yeah.
No, in all seriousness, I was thinking to myself, when would this be an auction item versus just listing it? I know you've talked about it a little bit, but I'm just kind of curious because she got $237. She'd seen that it was sold for $300 in other places. Would she have been better off auctioning it?
To me, I'm more likely to do a buy it now item on one that is either higher value or higher demand, or there's crossover, sometimes both. I'm more likely to do a buy it now because I want to get a specific price, or I want to see if I can get a bite quickly for someone who wants it and wants to buy it and doesn't want to wait a week. But if it's not as valuable, maybe there's a lot of them, then I'm going to put it on auction at a cheaper price, because maybe a person sees that there's a lot of them out there, wants one, but isn't in a hurry, and like, well, I can come here anytime and buy one. Well, if you put it on auction for $20 or $30 less than the average sale price, and they see it, they might be willing to stick around with you for a week to buy it at a discounted price. Doesn't mean it will sell at a discounted price, but you have piqued their interest by starting it at a lower price. So you pull some people in. Now you get people who are interested in competing with one another for your item. Again, they know that they can go and buy that item the next minute. They're just going to have to buy it for more money. So you get people on there. Multiple people will bid. It doesn't matter. You just need that one person to bid up to a place that is reasonable. I don't want to risk that on a super high value item and risk selling it for And I'm talking like thousands of dollars. Like I don't want to list something like a lot of gold that's worth $3,000 listed at $1,000 with no reserve, because, on the off chance that a bunch of gold buyers don't come to the table, I don't want somebody to get away with something way under the actual value, because that would be a mistake for me. So I guess what I'm saying is there aren't specific items or even individual items that I look at it and I'm always like, oh, that's a buy it now, or that's a whatever. It has to do with how much I spent on it, how quickly I need to sell it, and what level of risk I'm willing to take. That's different for everyone.
Yeah, and it sounds like to me that it's a little bit of this game, and one of the reasons why we even have a show is because there's so much nuance in this. There's no just one right way or one wrong way. There's a lot of like give and take and sort of getting a vibe for things and feeling out. And, one of the reasons why people become so good at certain things is because they have experience doing it. They're like, oh, I think this might be X. Mm-hmm. So, for Yvette, that might just be a situation where the next time she goes to sell a piece of jewelry, she say, okay, maybe I'll put it up for $275. I'll let it sit out there for a month.
But she now has that experience, having sold it before, knowing what that process was like. If she has any regrets about how she did it, she can change it next time. And I think that's a good thing to say, is like in some ways, I feel like being a part-time reseller is harder, in the sense that when you're not selling a whole lot of things, the things that you did sell are fresher in your memory, and you can think about them, and you may run the risk of sitting and kind of like perseverating on, oh, well, did I do it right? Maybe if I'd have done it this way, it would have sold for more. Guys, I never think about that, like pretty much ever. I have so much work to do. I sell something, I fulfill it, I move on. I don't remember the stuff I sold last week. I have to push that stuff out of my memory. I don't sit and ruminate and think about and worry about or regret if I did a certain way. I might have the thought, well, I kind of wish I had sold it for more. And even I say that on here sometimes. I'll show something and be like, I kind of wish if I had waited, I could have made more. But usually it was a choice I made. And I knew that was one of the potential outcomes, was that it would sell for less than I wanted. I was taking a risk. So the only thing is I just take that knowledge from that experience and I just hold it back there, and I'll apply it whenever it's something in the future that's similar. But I don't sit and fret or worry. You'll never know. Like, maybe you would have done it the other way and it would have turned out even worse than the way that you did do it. You can't go down multiple timelines, right?
Yeah.
Or possibilities. So, you do your research, you give it your best shot, and hopefully you're happy with the outcome. Most of the time I am with what I do. Sometimes I'm not, but it all averages out to where I typically am pleased with the speed at which I sell things and what I get. It's enough to keep me going, and that's really all I can ask for.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I think about I remember everything you've talked about on the show, because I look at them and do it. So it's really interesting to me to think, wait, you don't remember that stick pin? Or that
I mean,
ephemera?
It's a little tongue-in-cheek. I do remember a lot of things. But,
I know what you mean.
But, like, just for example, I was going through photos. Sometimes I do a lot of my work on my phone, so I try to go through and delete things after I list them. But over time, things happen. Family pictures are in between stuff. And then I go back 2 or 3 years, and I'm looking for a picture, and I come across a photo of a wall that has multiple instruments on the wall of things that at one time I owned and eventually sold. And I see it and I think, oh yeah, I very vaguely remember owning that. Or I'll see something like, I have no recollection of having ever owned, bought it, played it, sold it, nothing. And it's just, I don't have the bandwidth for all of that to be in my memory. Now, a lot of it, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, but I would have been able to come up with that memory or tell you or describe that thing having no, cue or prompt for it.
Right.
So, I mean, guys, I've been selling full time, not for a ton, like 5 years, but I don't know how many thousands, multiples of thousands. I've probably sold over 100,000 things, maybe 200,000 things in the last 5 years. I mean, shoot, I have one group of the matchbooks I bought. I had 50,000 of those. That was just one lot of things that I bought.
Does eBay aggregate? Does eBay tell you like your total sale? Not like in lots, but like number of times you've sold an item on eBay?
Sure. You can get on and do and run reports like what's the average sale price? If I sell...
No, but I mean like just total number of sales from the time you've been on. Like you've sold...
No, I don't think I can do that. Now you could run a report for like this, year to date or last year, but beyond last year, they don't. So if you want that information and you want to take a look at or add it up over time. You really need to do that every year. And then you can accumulate those. It's possible. They also have a bunch of back-end things that you can pay them extra, and they'll give you access to these tools and stuff. A lot of those I don't use because I've not found that the extra time to use them and all that actually added much value to the bottom line. So
yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure eBay knows exactly how many things you've sold and has that catalog
they do.
somewhere.
Yep. But at the end of the year, if I sell 2,400 items, and then you just divide that out of the gross sales, and it will tell you, okay, like this year, the average sale price for an item was $124, which sounds high, but I also have lots of things that sell for $10.
Right.
But then I'll have this one instrument that sells for $5,000, and then that, the mean there,
it's
the
an
average, it averages, but it makes it seem like it's a lot higher. The true average of things that I sell, they're like $20 to $30 most of the time. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's just a volume game, though.
You remind me of something when you're saying about things we remember. Like I do another show called Smarticle and been doing it for about 3.5 years. People go, "Oh, I remember that episode on blah blah blah." I'm like, "Nope, don't remember it." And literally, I listen to every episode in detail. I know every word that comes out of Matt's mouth on the show. But I forget. And my brother, shout out to my brother Rick Doble, or Rich, as some people call him. I don't understand that. But he's Rick to me. Little Ricky Doble. Anyway, he's now a retired man of leisure. But he
excellent.
He was listening to one of our shows, and he's like, "Hey, you still need a pair of Maui Jim sunglasses?" I'm like, "What?" And I apparently had referenced that I wanted. And when you talked about I love Maui Jim sunglasses.
So look for them in the thrift stores, because people don't look at brands a lot of times on those. They just throw them in the bin for $2 or whatever.
Or they're like my brother, who's can no longer wear just regular sunglasses because he needs corrected lenses. So he sent me a beautiful pair of Maui Jim sunglasses. He goes, "You want them?" I'm like, I want them. But anyway, I did not even remember saying that I wanted to. So people, if I've said I want things out there and you just send it to me, I'm okay with that.
Just send them to him. Folks, what are you waiting for?
All right. So I had another funny little instance. We talk a lot on this show about the crazy sale. We're waiting for people to email us about their crazy-ish finds or whatever. So I have a friend who's a super fan. He's worked in the apparel industry for a long, long time, in sports apparel specifically. And maybe we'll get him on the show because he's a really interesting character. But
nice.
He said his son had gone off to college, and excuse me, hold on. He was cleaning out something in his room, and he up on a top shelf, he reached up there and he found a glove, a baseball glove, up on this top shelf that had been like tucked back in there for years, right? It was a kid's room, and the kid's off in college, and he pulls it down, and it's you probably don't remember this, but there's a guy by the name of Shane Victorino. He was a Major League Baseball player. They called him the Flying Hawaiian. Wow. And this glove was he just found this sitting up on the shelf. This glove was it was like signed, autographed. It had this specific Hawaiian themed glove. Now I don't know any of the details, like it was Rollins or whatever. He's like, "Well, I'll sell it." So he put it up on eBay in an auction. Because he didn't know how much it would be. $1,400 later, he sold the Shane Victorino glove.
Wow.
So I was like, "Oh my God, it does happen." Matt tells a story about people finding things in their closet. This just happened like 2 weeks ago. Boom, $1,400.
Prove me right. You proved me right.
Yeah, so I just think that people should, if your kids have gone off to college, look in their closets. You never know what you might find up there.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, good story on that. All right. Next set of questions we have is for our friend Mary. Mary is...
Is it for Mary or is it from Mary?
It's from Mary, but they're questions for Mary to answer from her.
Okay, wonderful.
Some of them I'm going to answer specifically because they're about YouTube and some other things, but I specifically wanted to say, I'll answer her specifically because this really doesn't fall under it. It's about how you create your YouTube channel and everything else. But I did want to mention that we have a subreddit that I post in the show notes every week, and I think it's going to be a really good thing for people that are like Yvette and Mary that are selling things. We are the moderators, so we will try to get on there and answer. But it would be great if you hear from other people in the biz, so to speak, that are sort of asking these questions and want to know where, like, how much should I sell this? Should I put it on auction? Things like that. So, Mary, I will be answering your YouTube questions they're a little bit too deep in the weeds in terms of channel, but maybe they're not. After I do some research on them, because I actually do need to research them, maybe I'll announce them on the show, but they're a little bit more in the weeds than we would say about reselling. They're more about how to build out your YouTube channel. So
Sure.
I will let you know, but I did want to respond, Mary, on the air. You are a super fan. We do appreciate you. So we will be responding to those questions either in person or on the show very soon.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah. All right, Matt.
Yeah.
What did we sell this week?
Several things, and February is still not a great month. I have a lot. I just happen to right now have a bunch of fairly valuable collectible things from other people as well as myself, and so it just hit at the right time, which is nice. Now, things change. I mean, maybe March will be the really slow month when I thought February was going to be. That can happen. I mean, just look at the weather. I thought the weather would be a certain way. It's a completely different way. So that's what it seems like. It's like that everywhere. Right now, you can't trust the seasons, but I have a handful of cool things. I try to pull stuff that's a little bit different in different categories. And the first thing is this really old, and actually says, I thought maybe there was a date on it, but I guess not. But this would be late 1800s, early 1900s. It is a straight razor, a razor that a man would use to shave. I think you're muted, actually, still. But it says...
It's a Sweeney Todd razor. Sorry, I was muting myself.
It says Keen Cutter, which is the brand. Keen, Keen Cutter, and Cutter with a K. This is the CG or G Simmons, something like that. But it was made in Germany. It has a plastic type of a handle that is colored and has a little scene, a little image of a deer in the woods on the handle. And then the little tang section up here actually has a tortoise shell, like from a tortoise, from a turtle, carved out and put on here, and then you have the blade. And it's in really good shape. I'm selling a collection piece by piece for someone, and these things were in immaculate condition. A lot of times you see them at at antique stores, or you'll see them online, and they're okay with their, the blades rusted or different things. And
Can
that's
you hold
not
it all
great.
the way up, Matt, so we can see it? Because I've been doing the
I can pull
What's
it,
Sold show, and
pull it
it's
all the way up.
wow.
The blade looks quite nice. It's very thin, and there's different styles or depths and types of the blades. But then sometimes the tangs do not come out a long ways. Sometimes they're covered in things like mother of pearl or this tortoise shell or something else. Sometimes, and the handles could be made of all kinds of things. So they can be made of lucite, plastic, bakelite, aluminum, wood, antler, bone, they could be made of, I've seen all kinds of stuff, ivory, porcelain. The list goes on. But there are some cool books out there that tell you kind of the different dates and ages when they had new materials that they started making the handles out of, and that will help you date them a little bit because a lot of times they won't actually have the date, and sometimes not even the manufacturer, so you have to use Google Lens or that kind of thing. But that was
sorry, did you say how old that one was?
It's likely between 1880 and 1900, and this one sold for $75. I was hoping that some of these would sell for more. I've sold a lot more of the smaller ones lately, and those are going in the $55, $60 range. And then sort of the lower range for these is I don't really want to sell them much below $70 a piece, but some that are more intricate, ornate, can sell for $100, $200. You could familiarize yourself. If you look up antique straight razor and you look at the highest sold items, you're going to see some trends and some themes. And this is true across the board, no matter what you look for. But if you're looking for these razors, you're going to find that, it seems like this particular maker, this particular brand seems to be selling more. Oh, it looks like the straight razors that are a little bit deeper, which are the ones that were more used by barbers and not as much by the common man. Oh, those seem to be selling for higher amounts. And that's good. You're equipped with that knowledge. Then you go out and you find yourself some of these. You'll know, well, this is nice condition, but it doesn't meet these criteria. So it would be a little bit risky to sell it for good money and quickly. But if you find something right brand, right type, then the risk is a lot smaller. It seems like those are more collectible, and that's what people are wanting to get. So that will help inform you when you're trying to make a decision as to whether or not something's a good investment to sell or not. In this case, it was just given to me to sell. It had already been collected, and they'll be happy to get that money.
Yeah, I've actually entertained the idea of learning how to use a straight razor. It's so I see the old films where like the Godfather where they're in the chairs with the towels and someone dies. But like the sharpening the razor, I've always man, it'd be great. I've actually had a straight razor shave And it's a pretty incredible experience. You know, it's like a real one of those true. It's like the male spa experience for sure.
A lot of people are actually, to your point, a lot of people are getting back into liking some of these older tangible items and practices, like the idea of getting the lather all up and putting it on, and you can also buy vintage, what they call safety razors, and those are closer to what a razor looks like today that we would use. You would, unscrew and you put the little blades in. There's still old ones that are in good condition, or you can buy newer ones. You can start with that. But a lot of collectors, like I'm on a couple of these Facebook groups of collectors of these straight razors, and a lot of these people are talking about how well or not they are to use. So they're not just collecting them to look at. They are actually, they're actually shaving with them. They want to see how they feel, how sharp they are, and they have their favorites. They'll be, what's your favorite? Like, well, what do you mean? My favorite based on what I paid, or my favorite daily shaver? You're like, okay, just answer the question.
Well, the great part too is that they are, you don't have to go out and buy another one. Like if you like to use a straight razor, it's basically, you don't spend any more money on it. So like anybody that uses razors to
get a razor from 1880, that's 140-year-old. I mean, that thing has lasted multiple generations of your family and will probably outlast you. Because these things are made of steel and they're really sharp. They're really well made.
Well, and as things get more and more expensive, I wonder a little bit as, when people are thinking about selling stuff, the reusable items like a straight razor are going to become more popular because they're going to be less expensive. So something to think about.
For sure. Okay, another thing that I sold was a pocket watch chain and fob, which I sell these pretty regularly. But this particular one is interesting because it's the actual chain is wider, almost like the chain of like a bracelet. It's flat and wider, and it comes down to a very large kind of ring, and then it's holding a second little part, which would be considered the fob part, with the little part that you would connect then to a pocket watch or a set of keys or whatever it is that you're wanting this for. This sold, it's gold filled, which means it has a small amount of gold on the outside of it, very thin layer. The inside is just probably primarily copper or brass. But this sold for $110, and it's just this old chain. Now, some people are going to be like, well, why would just an old pocket watch chain sell for that much money? I think part of it is because more people are getting into, seems like there's a resurgence in popularity in watches and pocket watches particularly. I've just been selling a ton of them lately, but also because gold and silver prices, all these precious metal prices are so high right now, they're through the roof, that used to, whenever I would sell something that was gold filled, I'd get about $1 per gram, something like that. So if I have something that's gold filled, sell it for $8 to $10. If it's based on the gold weight. Something like this weighs more, but that's sold even more than the gold weight. But if you have gold-filled things, like I got a bag of 2,000 or 3,000 grams of gold-filled jewelry that I could list any day, and when I do, it's going to sell for roughly $1 a gram. It might even be a little bit more. So that's a lot of money, for something that doesn't seem to have a ton of gold, but they just melt it. They harvest that gold off of it, and they send it. It's melted down into these little ingots, and then they're sent back into the jewelry industry, and it's just a recycling business. That's what all these scrappers are doing. They're selling it to the metal melting companies, and then those metal melting companies, once they melt it, they sell it to a jewelry store for them to construct jewelry out of that metal. And so that's what it is. A lot of what comes in is stuff that's not terribly old, but just doesn't, it's just the style, it's out of style. It's not something people wear right now. Or really antique stuff like solid gold pocket watch cases or gold-filled stretchy bands that they used to have for men's and women's wristwatches, stuff like that. They're taking stuff that's really old that just really sits in a box or a container in people's closets they're not really using. If you can get that stuff out and sell it, you're going to make some good money. It's at the highest it's been in years and years and years. I mean, it was like $2,900 and something per ounce of gold. Just like 2 or 3 years ago, it was $2,000. It's almost gone up 30%. That's crazy. And it's not going to stay like that forever. So if you bought gold or anything for investment purposes, I mean, sell high. That's what you do. Now's the time.
Yeah. It's interesting. We did a whole show on pocket watches. So if you're interested in that sort of understanding gold filled versus gold, the backed and all the words that Matt's using, go back and listen to that episode. It's not on YouTube, unfortunately, because we just started adding the YouTube shows maybe 10 shows ago, but it's definitely an interesting show to listen to. You'll pick up some things about it. So if you're interested in just the gold stuff, go ahead and listen to that. It will explain a lot.
Yeah. Another thing that I sold is this. This is also antique. Probably it's a Victorian era. I'm trying to hold it up so that you can kind of see. But this is essentially a cameo brooch. So it's slightly pink. It's carved out of shell, and it has a fairly wide bezel and setting around it. It has a little pin on the back. You could pin it on your dress or scarf or whatever. And it's made out of 10 karat gold, solid gold. So this sold for $160. Now, if I were to remove the coral and just weigh the metal, it probably weighs somewhere in the range to where the gold price would probably be worth about $110 to $120. So it sold for $30, $40 more than the gold content. I think that that's okay, because among antique jewelry, there are definitely collectors for cameos, but I tend to find that cameos seem to sell less than you would think they would based on their age and stuff. Part of it is because wearing coral carved cameos is not really something people do anymore. Like, that's not a thing. And people don't really wear brooches a whole lot as much anymore either, like just pins on their shirt. That's not, people are more likely to wear women earrings, necklaces, rings, bracelets. So this has kind of gone out of fashion a little bit. So again, I didn't pay anything for this, but I would pay $60, $75 for something like this if I saw it out, knowing that I could sell it for twice as much, because I know I could sell it pretty quickly because it's got gold content. Speaking of gold content, the next thing I sold is just a little women's wristwatch, probably from around the 1960s, 1970s. The band itself is actually soldered in and built in. A lot of times these women's watches, you could remove or put on different bands if they broke, if you wanted a different style. But this is actually soldered together, and it's kind of like a rope band. And it's all gold colored. And the reason it's gold colored is because it's 14 karat solid gold. The band and the bezel and everything where the movement is, around the edge of the movement is a bunch of diamonds as well. And this is an Omega brand watch. So Omega, for watch enthusiasts, it's considered a high-end watch. It's not a boutique watch. It's not on that super upper echelon, and it's not quite in the echelon of Rolexes. But they make very high-quality watches with Swiss movements, and obviously use valuable materials, gold, platinum, diamonds, and things like that. Again, this was sold for someone else. This little tiny thing here sold for $1,200.
Whoa.
On eBay, because it probably weighs about 20 some grams right now. 14 karat gold was about $55 per gram yesterday. So you multiply 55 times the weight. Now, this is misleading because it has diamonds and also the weight of the metal and the movement inside. So this entire thing's not solid gold. And the buyers know that, but it is functional. It works. It's a well-known and established brand. So I was very happy with that sale. I don't know the woman I'm selling it for. I don't know what she paid for it. I don't even know if it was hers to start with. It may have come to her from her family, but that'll be a nice sale. And so if you come across Omega brand watches or pocket watches, do your research, but people collect those pretty heavily. They're a nice brand. I like them also.
Yeah, reach out to Matt. He'll sell it for you.
That's exactly right. I got another sale here. These are 3. Talk about another thing that's kind of not culturally popular anymore. But these are cuff-style bangle bracelets. And the thing that they have in common is they're all roughly the same size. They're all sort of, they're flat kind of. They're not rounded. And they all can open up and close around your wrist. They're smaller. They would need a smaller woman's wrist. There's 3 of them. The weight of all of these together is probably around 20 some grams. But these 3 sold for $112. This is from the Victorian era as well. You'd be surprised. Some of these that are not solid gold, they have a little bit of gold filling, but intricate Victorian-looking cuff bracelets can sell for hundreds of dollars, depending on how, maybe uncommon they are or how large they are. So keep a lookout for that stuff. You can find them around. I've got multiple ones of these for multiple people, and I have some myself as well. So these are good. People still buy them. I'm assuming they're just scrapping them for the gold content, but I don't know that.
Are you saying it wouldn't fit over my giant, as my daughter calls it, meat
It would
paw?
not fit over your hand. It wouldn't fit over my wrist either. And I'm not a big person. It's just that, a lot of these older antique pieces of jewelry, if it's a ring, they tend to be smaller back in the day than the average size that women wear today. these cuff bracelets tend to be smaller than what fits on the average woman's wrist. So I don't know if that's like an indictment on, the weight of people today, if just more people are overweight, or if somehow people are changing.
More to do with height. I think that we've grown
okay.
the average height of, I read somewhere the average height of a man in the 1850s was like 5'4". So,
wow.
Part of it is just physically
Getting taller.
Eating more foods, more plentiful foods has made us bigger. We're the biggest people. And I'm not talking about weight in the history of the world. We're just big people because we get better food. It's just that simple.
But what about giants? I mean, from the past. Giants.
Well, of course.
How do you explain that?
Giants, but Matt, we're not supposed to talk about the Giants on the show.
Okay, fair enough. That's the other podcast that we have.
Our
talk about
podcast where we talk about dragons and giants. Sure.
That's right. Okay, next thing is a little badge. Again, this is a brooch or a pin-style badge that you would put on. It has a two-part. At the top, it has a flat section that just says visitor. And in the bottom, it has a round, like black and white sort of printed little piece of paper inside. And it says, President Johnson's Tailor Shop, Greenville, Tennessee. And it's just a picture of like an old cabin with a brick fireplace. And so at this time, a long time ago, I don't know how old, because I'm looking in the back.
It's the Andrew
It doesn't
Johnson.
say the age.
So it would have been Civil War era.
President Johnson's. Yeah. So I don't know if he personally had a tailor shop or someone in his family had a tailor shop. But in Greenville, Tennessee, at one time, there was some sort of a museum type place or a spot that you could visit. And that's what this is for. So this it's sold for $40, which is a pretty good price, but that's a unique piece. It's not something you're going to see every day. I've never seen one just like it before. And I've, gone through lots of different old badges and pins and stuff. But it's just fascinating the types of interesting historical things you come across in this type of business, whether it be paper ephemera or old badges, or, there's all kinds of military challenge coins. There's all kinds of things that prior to doing this work, I didn't even know existed. Or if I would have seen it, I would have had no idea what it is. And so there are a lot of things out there that you probably have never seen, never heard of, but would be shocked to find out how valuable they are. And that's just what this whole business is about. It's just trying to learn more and more and more and more all the time, so that when you walk in a place and you're looking for something, you have the best chance of finding something that's going to turn the best profit for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's actually a National Historic Monument. I looked it up. Andrew Johnson was a tailor before he became a politician.
Okay, there you go.
Lived in Greenville for a little while, but there is this tailor shop there.
Cool.
So that could be. We'd have to look up when it became a historic monument, when they started selling. But we went to Monticello a month ago or a couple weeks ago, whatever, with our daughter, and they're selling stuff like that. And 100 years from now, that could be 100 years old, boy.
Well, and I don't know who bought this, but I have definitely in the past had people who work for represent museums purchase things that I have to put in with it. Something like this, like let's say whoever the curator of this place is, if it's still open, that would be a fun thing to find, right? A visitor pass of someone who came to your establishment 100 years ago. You put that up, it's like a little, you have this little display, or you put it on the wall. That's cool. That's fun. That's a part of their history. So I don't know, who bought that for or why. Maybe they just collect old badges. But to me, it's cool if things pass through me and then end up back at a place of origin, or a family member that had to do with it. And sometimes people will reach out and tell me, well, hey, this was the camp that, it's like a postcard of a camp. This is the camp that like my great grandfather started back in, the 20s and that kind of thing. And so it's like a personal connection to them. And I love that. I think that's really fun.
Awesome.
Okay, last couple of things. This is a brooch. Again, this is a pin, a lot of jewelry. So lots of jewelry, lots of small items. This is it looks like a fleur-de-lis shape.
Ooh, it's a fleur-de-lis.
It's
so Louisville.
Green enamel with this kind of, I don't know how you even describe it, almost like peach-colored Fleer cabochon rhinestones. And it comes with a set of clip-on matching earrings. So it's a set. This sold for $180, this set. It's costume jewelry. But the reason that it was so valuable, it's by a brand called Trifari. And you would actually call it Crown Trifari because of the logo. There's a crown on the top of the T, and they're older items made by that company. sported that. When they became like a newer, more modern company, they dropped that. And so now when you look at the back, if you look close enough and it has that crown, you'll know that it was made older in the history and then oftentimes are more sought after, more valuable. There's a collector market for that stuff. So when you find sets, things that have, all the rhinestones or whatever are intact, this one would probably be described as like a jelly. They call these type of rhinestones like jelly stones, or if it was an animal and it had this on it, they'd call it a jelly belly. They have all these terms for the way that types of rhinestones are used or the look of them. So this was cool. I was happy with that sale. I had it up as high as $300 to begin with. Had watchers even then. Just waited. Just it was too high. People were interested but didn't want that price. Slowly over time, I've had it for maybe 2 months, maybe not quite. So it took a couple of months. This is something I've sold for somebody, so I didn't buy it. But these are the kinds of things that you can find periodically at thrift stores in a grab bag, or this is just, a brooch earring set's $10. Well, if you can sell that for $175, that's an immediate purchase, right? If I look at the back and I see it's Crown Safari and it's got nice rhinestones, it's real colorful or big, I'm buying that. I don't even have to do the research because I know enough from previous experience to know that that's a good buy.
Interestingly, Yvette is from Louisville, Kentucky, and the symbol of Louisville, Kentucky is, in fact, the fleur-de-lis. So you often see the fleur-de-lis all over town. They're on signs and everything. And I wonder if, when you're listing this, is there, knowing full well that maybe New Orleans or someplace is going to be more, the people there might be more interested as collectors, would you put something in there, the fleur-de-lis, or would you say something?
Yeah, I say fleur-de-lis. I say fleur-de-lis just in case people are searching for that. They collect things that have that shape. And I know there's that New Orleans connection. I don't know. Is it a French thing originally?
It's why Louisville is a French city.
Okay.
New Orleans, it's a French symbol originally.
Yes. Yeah. So it's cool. I've come across old stick pins with fleur-de-lis. I've come across, postcards, all kinds of old items. That, again, that's just like the predecessor emblem to the Nazi swastika, which I believe was a Native American peace symbol.
I think it's Indian.
An Indian, okay.
From Southeast Asia,
okay,
yeah.
I see. So, a lot of people don't know that was a historical, but then there are also people who collect it simply because it's a historical symbol. And it's the same with the fleur-de-lis. People will collect it because it's an older symbol or it has a particular origin that they care about. Last thing I'll show is, I was happy with the sale. This is a wristwatch, and it's in the case.
Oh, it's pretty.
It's what you would call a chronograph wristwatch because it has multiple buttons and it allows you to use it like a stopwatch, start and stop. It has multiple different types of, I don't know, the word is escaping me, but different subsets of activities that it can do, things that you can have it do.
It's got like little miniature clocks.
It's got, exactly. And so it's in really, really good condition. It's antique, and it's also, I believe, I'm trying to remember if this one, it's gold. It's gold. It's like rolled gold. It's not solid gold, but it has quite a bit of gold content on it because it's quite heavy. But it's in immaculate condition. This thing sold for $1,300.
Whoa!
Because it is fairly unique and rare. The movement inside operates very well. It's very clean. It has a new band on it, and it's collectible. It's a brand called Gerard Perregaux. And it's
beautiful.
Yeah, it is very pretty. I don't personally wear watches much, and when I do, I don't typically wear chronographs because I don't have a reason to need to use all of those functions. Mm-hmm. But just to know, chronograph watches, and if you don't know what that is, just look up chronograph watch and you'll see the theme. And typically they have the same little dial or crown on the side of a regular wristwatch, but they'll usually have at least one button above and below that on the right side, where you can start and stop or set things to do different functions. It was really cool sale. I think I paid somewhere in the range of $700 to $800, so I made $400 some dollars in profit.
Where did you get that from?
I bought it on eBay as well.
Oh, you did?
I bought it on eBay. I waited a little while. I waited past 90 days, so if somebody interested in my watch couldn't go back to see if I purchased it on eBay.
Smart.
So that information is lost to the ether now, and then I relisted it so people could buy it and not come in and say, "Hey, you just bought this last month, and now you're trying to double the price."
Well, now your secret's out.
Listen, I got lots of little things I do, but that's a real thing because you could go and look. I do that sometimes. Let's say there's an instrument I'm interested in, and I like the price. I get on looking. oh, lo and behold, 2 weeks ago, this thing sold for $400 more than they got it now. So I'll send a message and say, hey, like, what's going on with this? And sometimes they'll go, oh, yeah, like they committed to buying it, but then they never paid. That happens to me too. So that's likely enough. Or they'll say, oh, yeah, like they got it and returned it because it had this crack or something. So we put that information in and we lowered the price to more accurately reflect the condition or whatever else. Or then I won't get a response at all. And I'll be like, oh, okay, I don't know. There's some red flags here. I don't know what's happening. But that information is available to anybody. So if you look at something, maybe before you buy it, check to see if it recently sold. Because there are people who are buying stuff just to sell on there too. And it may not matter to you if you really want it, but you could also get on there and say, okay, now I'm equipped with a little bit of knowledge. Maybe I could say, hey, like, look, I know you bought this last month for $500 less. How about you give me a deal and you still make $300? Like, give me $200 off. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. You're not being mean or anything, and that information is available. So sometimes you can use that as a bargaining tactic. But it's just good to know.
That's something I didn't know that. I mean, it's funny. I learned something new today. I didn't even think the fact that you would buy stuff off of eBay to this later on resell it. I wonder how many of our listeners
do that all the time.
That.
And I don't always, I mean, it's not often that I wait. A lot of times I'll just turn around and the way that I photograph it or the way that I package, like I've talked on here before, I'll buy postcards by the thousands. I'll go through 1,000 postcards. I'll pull out about 75 that I think have individual value to be sold by themselves. And then I'll turn around and sell, or let's call it 50. Then I'll get back on and I'll sell the 950 that are left for more than I paid for the 1,000 to begin with. So I just took different pictures, showed different stacks. Someone else buys it. And now I have 50 postcards that I have no cost in to sell. And I don't have to stress about doing it quickly. I don't have to stress about how much I make on them because anything I make is profit.
Yeah, it's interesting too because you are taking a risk because ultimately it might not sell. You might be paying more than it's worth. So that's one of those times where having knowledge of something can be hugely important.
Well,
right?
And like that's so nuanced too because when I'm looking at listings, I'm looking close up at stuff. Depending on the category, there are certain things I'm looking for. There are certain telltale signs that like, okay, there's some value here, or this is run-of-the-mill stuff. I do that with jewelry lots, postcard lots, pretty much anything I'm going to buy in a group. Because if you've got hundreds, thousands of items, you can't photograph every single one of those. So I'm just left to kind of sort through these pictures of large quantities of things and trying to base on my experience and knowledge of dealing with these things. Okay, what did this sell for? I'm kind of calculating in my head. This is a good price, too risky. Would be good if they'll give me a discount, so I'll ask. Yeah, but you're in the weeds, you know what I mean, at that point, because it's hard to describe exactly what my thought process is and all of that, but we could do shows just on that. We could even take one specific category, and I could tell you all about, and we should talk about.
We should do that.
What if you're looking at jewelry lots? What if you're looking at ink pens? What if you're looking, I mean, it could be anything. Badges.
Yeah. Ooh, badges. We don't need no stinking badges. Anyway, I wonder how many people got the reference on our last show, and we don't need. Did you get the reference?
It sounds familiar, but I don't.
We don't need no Sierra Madre, one of the great movies of all, one of the great westerns.
All right,
There's this scene where he says, "Show us your badges," and they say, "We don't need no stinking badges." So anyway,
there you go.
Listen, folks, Matt and I always talk about like, hey, I don't know if we're gonna. We always go way over what we originally thought,
course,
but
yeah.
We are out of time. But we will be back with a brand new show next week. Keep the emails coming. You could send it to us at whatsold@gmail.com or whatsoldpodcast@gmail.com. It's always in the show notes. So if anybody's interested, take a look at the subreddit if you get a chance. Otherwise, have a great week, everybody. I would normally give Matt a chance to pontificate at the end, but we're actually up on time. So have a great week. We'll talk with you guys soon.
Take care, everyone.